Hello there.
Hello.
So, before we start, I just want to say, why do we put off for tomorrow what can be done today? I want you guys to think about that question because I think that we do this. Do you think we do that, Miss LaShay?
I would have to agree. I would not only say that we do this, but I know that I do.
Yes, yes. So, hey, you guys, we are on Elevate in Life. We're on our second season. I wish I had some banners like choo,
Whoop whoop.
choo,
Season
woo, woo.
2.
Season 2. Hey, you guys, make sure you comment. We are live, so make sure you comment, make sure you like, and make sure you share this when it goes live. When do it go live, Lachey?
It goes live on YouTube Friday, but we are live right now in the moment today.
Today. We only going live in our Elevate in Life group. So you will make sure you join our Elevate in Life group at Elevate in Life with Shiela Little on Facebook. Okay. And make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel so you can get those alerts when we go live. All right. So let's do our introductions. Who am I? Well, no, let me introduce my because y'all see a new face. Y'all see a new face. Who is this new face that we see? Huh?
New face.
New face.
So, the new face of today, my name is LaShay LaRue, and I am a business development specialist, and
Mm-hmm.
I help entrepreneurs how to reach their target audience and scale their business. And I know that is a different topic for what Elevate in Life is, but at the end of the day, we are all trying to achieve financial freedom and live better, greater, stronger lives. And business is definitely a part of that. And a lot of the very same topics that Miss Sheila talks about, believe it or not, comes out a lot with my clients. And she's been such an integral part of me being able to find the words for that I feel so blessed to be able to be here today on her podcast talking to you guys.
Yeah, she's so humble, y'all, because she is my business developer. Okay. So any graphics that y'all see go up, any of my stuff y'all see, she is the person that does that. So let's give a shout out to Miss Danielle though, because Miss Danielle
Yes.
is off this season. She has a contract that she is fully focused on, and so she may pop in sometimes. So we just definitely want to give her some shout outs. So shout out to Miss Danielle. Who am I? I'm your friend and expert leader in the field of changing lives. My name is Shiela Little. I am a synergy coach and I help people to align, advance, and accelerate their life. But the first thing I help people do is stop doing the things that's stopping them from attaining the life that they desire and deserve. And if you guys been following me, I'm on this journey to help people stop it now. So I'm in between a 31-day challenge, right? Every day dripping information to people. So but today's conversation, Miss Danielle, about the question that I asked, why do we put off for tomorrow what could be done today? So today's topic, Miss Danielle, is what? I think I erased today's topic. What is our topic today?
Today's topic is, why do we really procrastinate?
The
And
real,
and where does that procrastination come from?
the real reason we procrastinate. Do you know the real
Right.
reason we procrastinate?
Well, I know the real reason only because I've been working with you. So, and I guess I can explain it the best way that I know how from my time working with you is that it's actually really emotion driven, which is something that I never really even considered. So I know for me, procrastination has always been a part of my DNA. So I thought. I thought it was just because I deal really well under pressure and
Mm-hmm.
getting things done. And if you give me 6 hours, I'll take 6 hours, but I can also get it done in 1 hour to 30 minutes. So here in Houston, we have this person on the radio, and he's actually an attorney, but he has this really funny commercial. And he says, "Are you one of those people who says if it's due Monday, then do Monday. And it was a genius commercial because it's hard not to relate to that. I know so many people that I know on a regular basis who fall into that category, and I know I do. So I think there's definitely a difference in and what we've socially accepted as procrastination, and then what I've learned from you. So that's the LaShay version, because I'm good at it, because
Yeah.
I can get
And
that. I work my best.
yeah, and that's a thing, right? We're good at it, right? And this is why it is a learned behavior too, because so many of us have trained ourselves to be okay with putting off, right, the task that we know we need to do now to tomorrow, right? And here's the harm in that, right? Because procrastination is harmful, right? It's not this simple thing that's, um, oh, I'll just do it another day. I'll just do it. It's harmful because the tasks that you're putting off, right, are important tasks. They're deadline tasks, right? They're things that need to be done, right? And you're putting it off because of your feelings or the trigger or the insecurity or the emotion that's coming off, and you're choosing unconsciously to do something else, right? And that's harmful because that's putting you in a position where you could possibly lose your job, right? You can, get a bad reputation, right? All of these other consequences that come from what? Just procrastinating, right? And the deeper issue to this, Miss LaShay, is that what it does to your conversation in your head, right? What you start to say to yourself when you procrastinate. I'm not good enough. Why am I waiting this long? Why do I continue to do this? Why am I continuing to, put this off? I know I should have did this. I know I should have did that. You know what I mean? And
Right.
that's a problem that we need to kind of resolve, you know?
Right. And I think it's a really interesting conversation because you're 100% right. The after effect after you've procrastinated, that is the real issue. At least I know for me, because in the moment, again, I'm of the mindset that this is when I do my best work. When the pressure is on, LaShay comes out and she does her best work because it is game time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be of that mindset and was of that mindset for years, and never really connected to the two with the feeling that I felt after. When I think about, well, that was good, but was that really my best work? Could I
Mm.
have done so much more if I had put a little bit of extra time, or maybe there was like this little bit of extra that I wanted to do, but I felt like, I literally did not have the time for, but it's okay. It's okay because I still did really good work.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it had always been a disconnect of that. And I never really equated what I was doing to real procrastination. In my head, I thought I was game time Shay and
Mm-hmm.
giving it my all. But in working with you, I realized that wasn't really true. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really giving it my all because I only gave myself a very small amount of time. If I believe that all I need is an hour to do it, well, why didn't I do it an hour last week, right?
Last week.
That would have given me
Right.
time to look, review, make those changes that I really wanted to. And and it does. It adds to a level of anxiety when it's all said and done. But I always thought that was like a totally separate emotion, right? Like that feeling that I
No.
felt after, I thought that was something different.
And here's the other part. I think I'm glad you said that because I think this is also a part of playing small, right?
Yes.
So
Amen to that.
not being able to do the check, not being able to do the second look, right? Not giving yourself time to do the revision. It's also like a form of kind of like self sabotage because I
Yes.
didn't get a second look at that, right? And then when you get it back, then if somebody corrected and said, or you read it after the deadline or whatever, you like, oh my gosh, like I said and I supposed to said this or whatever because you was in a rush, right? When if it only took an hour to do it, like you said, if you would have did it an hour, why didn't you do an hour on Monday so that you could
Right.
be the A student? But you settled for the B because you waited to the last minute. And how many of us is playing small, waiting to the last minute and not really challenging ourselves to prepare for the greatness that's inside of us? And I think that's the fear too. So we'll wait, right, to kind of hold back our greatness. And that gives me chills because I wrote a book. It's called A Dream That Broke Me Down to Stand Me Up. And I'm telling you, I would say that I would wait and wait and wait till the last minute, Miss LaShay, to get something done. And I could have did better, but I was settling for the B. And when I would experience B's from people, you know, and I knew I was an A, I was insulted. Like, why are you trying to play small in my life? Why are you trying to only bring me 100%? You know, why are you trying to only bring me 70%? I'm 100% person, but I was given life, you know, 70%, 80% of me, because I would wait to the last minute from this fear, from this narrative that I had created that, you know what, I do my best work at the end. That's when I can produce. You know, that's
Right.
when you get the best part of Sheila. But how do you
Right.
know? How do you
Right.
know that? When you didn't even get
Right.
the time to correct it. You didn't even have time to autocorrect. You didn't even get a second set of eyes to look at it, to review it, to know that when you turned it in, right, that it was the best part of you.
And I love that you said that because I know I've done that so many times, especially especially the, quick and when you think about the world today, right? We're all used to social media. We're all used to texting. Long form is difficult for a lot of people because we're so used to in our daily life using short form. And
Mm-hmm.
I never really associated that with a form of procrastination. And again, in my head, I'm just like, well, they know I'm writing this quick, but I've actually ended up in situations where, there was someone really important that I was trying to respond so quickly to that I just kind of sent something really quick. And then later on went back like, oh, wow, that is not even kind of where I was going with that. And it became major issues. And now having the time to kind of hindsight, sit back and think about it, and realizing the importance of taking your time, sitting down, think about what it is that you're actually putting out there, not calculating the time. I definitely became one of those people, and it's interesting how this habit developed. I became one of those people who would hit the snooze button because, like, I don't understand. I set the timer for now, or I said that I was going to start, today at 7 o'clock, but 9 o'clock is just as good. So I'll just do 9 o'clock. And then when it comes to 9 o'clock at night, and I'm like, crap, I still need another 2 hours of work. But I actually had those 2 hours this morning. And I would be done if I would have just stuck to my plan, showed up when I said I would,
Mm-hmm.
and done it then instead of calculating, well, when is it really crunch time? Like
Right.
how
Right.
much extra time can I really get out of this? And at the end of the day, it's not really extra time. It's
Right.
extra stress.
Right.
And and it was a conversation that I never had with myself because I always thought of myself as a person who thought big.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw myself as I'm going to work for. It was always I'm going to work with or I'm going to own it. And
Mm-hmm.
I never considered myself as a person who thought small. So I never thought about how small of a mindset that action is.
Yeah.
I thought it was, again, best me, like you said, best Sheila, best LaShay. Like that's what you
Mm-hmm.
get. You get best Shay at crunch time. But that is small thinking because in the time and the stress and the mental exhaustion that I faced after that could have been geared towards something else.
Could have
And it
been
could
good
have been
for
a better
something else.
product that I did in the beginning that made someone want to refer me to another, third, fourth, person. And I realized that it would have gotten me out of my comfort zone, my comfort level, right? Because what
Oh.
happens when you do have some of those big names calling on you and saying, hey, yeah,
Had to
when
pluck my
you,
hair on that one, y'all.
right, right. Because it's a thing. So like it, I thought that I was doing great working with, just the smaller business, because the smaller businesses, that's my heart, that's my blood, that's my lifeline. And I didn't realize how I was also thinking small instead of being able to transform my thinking, and to realize that by pre-planning, I can help the small businesses think bigger, achieve more. We don't have to settle. We don't have to deal with the small time frame, because guess what? We got 365 days in a year. So
Yeah.
are we really using that time most efficiently and really changing the plans around that? But I never thought of that as procrastination, as thinking small, right?
Yeah.
That
No.
that wasn't the thing I ever thought about.
And I want the audience, like, this is live in our Elevating Life group. Thank you, audience, who watch. But if you have a comment, if you're a procrastinator, one, I want you to, you know, put a post in the comment. But if you have a
Raise your
question,
hand.
please put it in there, because, you know, procrastination is known to be a time management thing, which is, again, why you set your time and say, I'm gonna do this at 7 o'clock, and you end up
Right.
doing it at what, 9 o'clock, and then
Right.
11 o'clock, right? Because it's not really that. It's actually an emotional thing. It's actually the narratives that come up when we start to do the thing that we know we need to do. It's actually the feelings that come up when it's time to do that thing. How do I feel about this? Right? Do I feel like I can write this paper? Right? The do I feel like when I do this report, is when I write it, is the boss going to understand my language? Am I going to write it properly? When I apply for this job, am I going to use the right language? When I write this business plan, am I using the right language? And I think that people need to become more aware of the questions that's coming up in their head about the task that they need to do, and it's cycling, and it's triggering these emotions in them. And so then they start to get distracted, right, with other things. So it's not the task, because you start to get distracted with other things. You start to do other
Right.
stuff like surf the internet, or, you know, like, I just don't feel like doing this. So you get on Facebook, or you go and, get on TikTok, and you go fold clothes or do other stuff. And all the time you're thinking like, okay, now how do I write this? Or, how is this going to sound to them? Or am I writing the right thing down? Does that make sense? And
No, it
all of
does.
that is triggering these feelings of inadequacy, right? Or not enoughness, right? Now, here's the kicker: those feelings of inadequacy and not enoughness is not something that happened today. And it's not something that happened at this job. Those are feelings that probably happened a long time ago when you were a little girl or a little boy, right? And you got something wrong, you wrote something wrong. And that's a story that carried with you all up into your adulthood. But now it matters, right? And so now you don't want that judgment on you, right? And so you wait and wait and wait to the last minute. So when you turn it in, right, there's a sense of relief, like, oh, I did it, right? And there is a sense of accomplishment, because the boss is like, oh, yeah, you did a good job. But the sense of, did I do my best? I
Right.
think is the internal dis-ease, because I think we all know that greatness lives in us. And we have, a lot of us don't have a fear of success, Miss LaShay. A fear of failure. We actually have a fear of success. What
Right.
does my greatness look like? And what
Right.
is that going to require of me if I step into that? And a lot of us like, I'm scared to fail. I'm scared to fail. No, you're not scared to fail. You actually scared to be all the woman, or all the man, I'm going to say woman, that you were created to be. That is scary. you
It
know
is.
that is like, wait, hold on. You mean all of this greatness that I was created to be? I'm scared of that. Is people gonna come ask me for my money? Is they gonna come flock into my house? Like, what is that gonna look like? The last person I knew was great, committed suicide or something, just some crazy story come up. And so we want to kind of, even though we want the lifestyle of greatness, we want it without, and live under the baseline, like live right under the radar. And so we will in some way suffice for average. And that don't feel good to us.
Yeah.
It's a disease there.
Yeah. And I think for me, the major key that you said was, am I really doing my best? I know that my story, and it's crazy how, regardless of if you were a person who was praised as a child or not praised as a child, it can lead to the same result. So for me,
Ooh, talk about it, girl.
yes, I was a child that my parents always told me I was fabulous. So you're great, you're this, you are a quote unquote golden child, and you grow up with that mindset and you accomplish a lot. But then I also faced a lot of people saying, oh, you're doing good, you're doing good. And it's crazy how that tends to stifle you really reaching for those stars, because someone else's
Mm,
average or someone else's good can be just your average, and it doesn't, that's not you
mm,
reaching the star. So just because I'm doing good compared to someone else, I had to realize that it's not about the comparison. I
mm.
was not doing my personal best. I was
Oh,
doing better than everyone else around
goodness.
me, everyone else of my age group, but I know that I wasn't doing my personal best. But for me, for a really long time, it was hard for me to see that, because my resume looked good, my accomplishments, look good for personal and just everything. But I always had that feeling of dis-ease, that feeling of
Mhm,
dissatisfaction, and it was difficult for me to really, like, I didn't even know it was a conversation I needed to have. I thought that was just life. You just feel this way, like that's just a part of life. We're
mhm,
humans and we're never going to be satisfied. I never really realized that for me the dissatisfaction was coming from me only comparing myself to other people and not truly doing my best, and letting someone else's level of satisfaction, level of comfortability kind of overshadow my capabilities. And kind of I let that, oh well, I've already done a better report than what you've done, so I can just stop right here. And then it
ooh,
became, oh well, I was able to do that in an hour, so why start, a week early? I'll just do that in 5 minutes
ooh,
before it'll
LaShay.
be great. It'll be great.
Girl, you just said a word. Now listen to my high performers out there. High performers. So listen, you just said a word and you just spoke a word, because there are a group of individuals who are highly intelligent, right? That grew up in communities where it did not require much from them, right? So I remember being in kindergarten and the teacher was like, you need to put her up because she's flying past us, right? Flying. Mom like, keep her in the first grade, first grade. We need to put her up. By third grade, LaShay, I'm like, I don't even like school. Do you know in high
Mhm.
school, I missed 167 days
Same.
in my 12th grade first hour class.
Same.
Like,
Yes.
I just became uninterested, like, because I could go
Yeah.
into the classroom, literally, like, read the test and pass. And
Yeah.
I formed a lackadaisical habit of just not showing up, because guess what? It wasn't required. It wasn't required for me to show up. Look at my phone. It just acts. It wasn't required. And to people who high perform, this is
Yeah.
very important, because you start to create this, like you said, this dis-ease inside of you, where you feel like, okay, I'm just I'm just showing up in an hour, and I could do in an hour what it's taking you
Yeah.
all day to do. And it's not a good feeling, right?
Hmm.
It's not a good feeling, because you got to toil with that feeling. And then we start to settle. And I'm speaking to the high performers now, right?
Yeah.
I'm truly am, because I think that there's a bell curve. You ever heard of the bell curve? So you have there's a bell curve. So you have
Yeah.
80% of people average. Then you got
Right.
20% of the people who are on the lower side of that average. But then you have 20%, of people who are on the higher side. and we have higher performers. And entrepreneurs, right, tend to be on the higher side of the bell curve. They tend to think differently, they tend to be more creative, and they tend to be the different person in their families, in their environments. But the environment doesn't support that because, like you said, their 100, it's like somebody else's 100 is like their 70. And this happens in relationships too, right? Where you just like, okay, I just, did that. Like it's like it's easy. And then we can then settle and get a dis-ease because we're not challenging ourselves enough. So I'm glad you brought up that story because it happens on both sides of the spectrum, right?
That's
And
what's
so,
so interesting to me, that whether you're on the higher 20% or the lower 20%, it's
or
the
in
same
the average
action.
or in the bell
Right.
curve.
It's all the same action. It all leads to the exact same thing. You end up procrastinating on giving your version of 100% because of fill in the blank.
Yeah,
Whatever your reasoning is, it
yeah,
still leads to you underachieving of
yeah.
what you could actually do. Because on the 20%, and if you're one of those people who people say, oh, you'll never, well, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If everyone always told you that you'll be nothing but a failure, if they told you that you could never start a business, you'll never be a good mom, you'll never be able to be a good wife, you don't know how to be feminine, if they've told you these things and it's led to you just feeling like, well, y'all already believe that, whatever. I'm just gonna do me. I'm just gonna do the bare minimum because you expect nothing of me. It ends up happening the same thing on the other end of the spectrum. So it's been interesting to me to learn how similar these two groups
Yeah.
actually are, and we're all dealing with the same problem.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had a client today and I was talking about denial, right? Because he was saying how he listens to podcasts and
Mhm.
how it's these tips for everybody to do, and but how he kind of falls off because one, it's a white man talking and he's a black guy. But then I had to give him this illustration. So you have the big Nile River, right? But you have smaller rivers that pour into the bigger river. Now, the bigger river, when you get there, there is the same thing. Like we're all trying to migrate to this same place, but we are all, individual rivers and we have our own journey that we're treading, trying to tread our own or make our own road or make our own path. Does that make sense? To
It
get to
does.
this current, right? To get to this
We all
flow,
have
to
our
get to this
own individual journeys, but we're all trying to achieve the same thing.
same thing,
You want to get to that river of happiness.
a
You
happiness.
want to get there, right?
But it all looks different, and we're treading different ground. So mine's may be a uphill battle, yours may be a low hill battle, mine's may have like trees, yours may just be plains, like, but we're all trying to migrate to the same space. And when you get there, all of that looks the same. So there's a uniqueness in our 23rd chromosome that makes each and every one of us unique. That's why we have our own iris. That's why we have our own DNA. That's why we have our own fingerprint, right? And that's why it's so important to get your coach to identify what your needs, to identify what your your expectation is, what your platform is, and to surround yourself with people that support you in your level of greatness and in your particular gift, right? Because that is the only way that you're going to actualize your particular gift, your particular skill set, right? Because it's going to be different for everybody, but if you don't get that, then we're going to continue to procrastinate, tell ourselves these narratives, tell ourselves these stories, and hold on to these ideas that, guess what, it's not even yours. You caught from somewhere else, that somebody taught you that you were either inadequate, that you were not enough, that you were not good enough, or that you felt as a consequence of being the outsider, of being the one who felt different. I get that. I get math. Why you don't get math, right? Like, I know how to read that. Why didn't you know how to read that? So now you feel like the outcast. So now you done created a story that I'm different. And now you kind of in some way developed the narrative for yourself that I'm different. I'm not good enough. You know what I mean?
I love that you worded it in that way because I know that was something that for me I heard a lot as a child of my parents raised me a certain way, but I grew up in a very different community. And a lot of times in my community, in my family, I would hear the "you act white" stigma being
Mm,
put on me. And that just kind of got like, well, what does that even mean? Which brings up a whole nother set of questions. And that led me to embodying an identity of, well, I guess I'm just different because
yeah.
I don't even know what that is, and just kind of
Yeah.
left it as that. And then became a person who just keep your head down, keep on working, keep on
Mm,
trucking, keep on doing your work, doing
yes.
what is required of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that really stipend my full capabilities. I was
Mm-hmm.
not being like I thought I was the best shade that I could be because I was just being enough. And
Mm-hmm.
even though that enough was enough for someone else, that was not my best. And I was
Mm-hmm.
never comfortable with being that, with feeling that, with being in that place. But I said all that to say that would have been a story I continued to tell myself, that I'm just different, if I didn't have somebody else that I can go to, that I can have a conversation with, who, let me make this point, is truly neutral, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times we have a natural instinct to go to our friends or to our families and have these conversations, and what we think are the uncomfortable conversations,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
bounce ideas and get their feedback. And then after we have the conversation, we always feel like, and why did I talk to you? I knew this is exactly
Mm-hmm.
how it's gonna go.
You so funny. I knew what you was gonna say. But listen, that story of difference is funny because what came up in my spirit when you said that is I was thinking about the light skinned cousin with all the dark skinned cousins. The cousin that had the long straight hair, right, that didn't get liked, the pretty cousin that was amongst all of the, I think we all have a story. And, the pretty girl that everybody looking at like, but you the pretty girl, so you should not feel any type of way, right? But she's
Right.
the pretty girl, and if she's amongst people who shunned her because of her beauty, then she created a story that her beauty of I'm different. And guess what? Different has a negative connotation because now I'm not connected to a community of individuals that I feel loved, I feel supported. So now the thing that you love me for, I can't even love me for that because I'm not connected to you. This thing is not. So now I have self-image issues. So now I'm having all of these issues that then roll over, right, to a dis-ease of, you know, and we're gonna go back to self-sabotaging and feeling not good enough and things like that. So it could be academics, it could be looks, it could be hair color, it could be skin texture, it could be height, it could be weight. Anything can create or trigger the narrative of difference or not good enough, right? And we always just sometimes think, traumatic backgrounds, but trauma can be different for anybody, right? We don't get to say what trauma looks like for people. It's your own experience, which is why it's important for each individual to have a conversation about their story and what they're telling themselves so that they can be aware of it and then tell themselves something different, right? And that's why the Stop It Now framework came up, Miss LaShay, because I think that it's just so many of us that are stuck in this pattern of behaviors that we need to stop. And those behaviors, because we've manifested that life, has been reinforced over and over again. And now you believe it. So I know a lot of pretty girls that are not pretty anymore, right? Because they're stressed and they're, you know what I mean? And you could just see it on them, like, oh, what has life done to you? And then after working with them, seeing that lift off of them and seeing that glow come back to them. And it's like, yeah, there you go. You know what I mean? A
Yeah.
lot of people just, you know, getting back into alignment in their truth, right? And it's okay to be short, skinny, long hair, light skin, you know, smart, singing, whatever your unique gift is, that's your gift to have, to bring to the world. And, somebody ain't gonna like it, you know?
You're 1,000% right. And I love that you elaborated on that point. There's a song that I really like. I forget who writes the song. Maybe you know it, but the song is called Pretty Hurts. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's
Beyonce,
Chloe and Halle.
Beyonce.
Beyonce. Okay.
Yep.
And Chloe and Halle did a rendition of that. And that
Mm-hmm.
song is so true. And I think that's a thing that people don't really realize is that pain is pain. And whatever causes that pain, it's still something that you have to deal with. But I feel like, especially in a minority community, we don't support each other enough. And
Mm-hmm.
we don't give each other grace enough. And we're
Mm-hmm.
very hard on each other. So it becomes difficult for us to have these conversations. And then instead, we harbor all these uncomfortable feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what you just said, 1,000% right. And I know that because this is what it looked like for me growing up as a child. Every child wants to have their parents approval, and every child loves praise. When your parents are happy about something that you do, you want to give it your all. And I would start something, and as long as they were there, I'm excited, I'm happy. They stop paying attention, I get my award and I move on. But what it looked like for me as a community, they saw me doing these things, and I began to be labeled. I was labeled as, like I said, you're the golden child, LaShay. She acts white. She's this, and that uncomfortable feeling made me want to retreat, made me want
Mm-hmm.
to get away from those situations. And I realize now that that is a big part of what led to that procrastination. That it was that feeling that I, like you said, never dealt with as a child, that uncomfortable feeling of other people's opinions and other people's labels of me,
Mm-hmm.
that it just made me not really want to be in social situations. I can turn it on because I've got an event, I've got to deal with the client, I'm working, and I can turn it on. But because of these uncomfortable feelings that I never dealt with, I do not want to stay here for longer than I need to be. I do not
Mm-hmm.
want to put in more into this than what I really, really need to be. Not realizing that my emotional capacity was being eaten up by these childhood things that
Mm-hmm.
I never even thought that I needed to deal with, because again, life looked pretty good. I wasn't doing bad. I'm still not, doing really bad. I just never thought about that. It was just like, well, as long as you're technically doing good, then you're technically doing good. There's nothing to deal with. And that wasn't true.
Yeah.
That wasn't true.
Yeah. And I think you hit it on the head when you said emotional capacity, right? What is our emotional capacity? And, you asked, okay, what are we talking about? And you asked about the procrastination. And I said emotional management, because I think that one, life is about managing our emotions and having a relationship with our emotional person. And when that emotion is not expressed, and when we don't have permission to talk about, you know, yeah, things are going good, but that don't mean I feel good, right?
Right.
Like even that, like I remember feeling guilty because things were, I hadn't made it, quote unquote made it. So you're not supposed to be unhappy, you know. How do I talk about feeling not fulfilled when my life that I'm living is the life that somebody else is dreaming about? You know what I mean? Or want and desire. That's a space of emotion that I didn't give myself permission to talk about, experience, and it created a gap. And that gap got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, you know? And when we have these spaces of emotions in our life, no matter what caused them, I understood it. No matter what caused them, and like I said, a lot of it is like you said, you were doing that for your parents. You was doing that for your parents, and then got the title of the golden child, which came with, maybe some people like that. Maybe some people was like, oh, she the golden child, like, oh, she spoiled, whatever, the good and the bad came with that. And now it's like, okay, I don't even want to be here. Like, and what the expectation that title comes with that you probably didn't want, like the church kids. You know what I mean? They the church kids, but look, I still want a life. You know,
Yeah.
so all of life comes with emotions, and when we don't give our time, and in our culture, we typically only have a couple of emotions that we introduce ourselves to and that we're able to express, in our families, when life is a plethora of emotions, you
Right.
know, and when we don't give ourselves time to process that, then we build um, habits like procrastination. We start to self sabotage. We start to hold ourselves back from living in our fullness, from really actualizing and unlocking our potential, because potential is untapped energy, untapped emotion, and we know it's there and it's calling for us every day of our life. Like, what is my purpose? What could I be doing? I feel like I need to be doing something, and it's calling for us, knocking at our door, but we don't even know how to answer. We don't even know if there's a knob there. We don't know how to unlock it or anything, because we haven't been introduced to a conversation that's comfortable enough, that's open enough, that's I don't know, honest enough, where we feel like, oh yeah, that's the conversation for me. And that is what the Elevating Life second season, podcast is meant to do, right? To introduce us back to the origin of our emotions, the origin of who we're created to be, the origin of these divine creatures that we have been pulled apart from for good or bad reasons, just because we haven't been taught, not for any other reason, but because who would have taught you?
Right. And I love that you that was the last thing that you said, because I think that is so important and so powerful, because my biggest thing lately has been about grace. And you have to give other people grace as well as yourself. And for a lot of the people who kind of led to us being in this place where we don't even know how to give ourselves grace, or we don't even know how to have these conversations, well, it's very difficult to teach something that you've never been taught yourself. It's
Mm-mm.
very different to know how to do something if you've never even seen it done
Yes,
for
yes,
you yourself. And that doesn't matter what your social economic status is. You can
right,
be a six-figure person and still not know how to deal with your
right,
emotions. You could
right,
have two pennies in your name to your name and know how to communicate your feelings and emotions properly.
right.
So I'm so glad that you said that. But another thing that you said, you started off, and I'm going to try my hardest not to get emotional, is about giving yourself permission.
Yes.
And that was a conversation that you and I had, that it was such a relief that I did not know that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that in my constant go, go, go mentality, that I had this bag of emotions in me. And I didn't realize how guilty I felt about the existence of that bag, if that makes sense. I always felt guilty to complain about anything that I was dealing with emotionally, because again, LaShay, she's the golden child. She's the perfect one. If she falls down, then everybody else is going to fall down. And
Right.
then what does the world look like? And I carried that weight. If someone did something that I didn't really like, I realized I practiced more of avoidance. That's not a
Mm-hmm.
conversation, whatever. It's just not even worth it. You'll get there eventually. Let me
Mm-hmm.
go over here and move. And I never even considered that I could actually play a role in having these conversations. And so let me tell you about what happened this week. So I was really happy that after the conversation we had about, me having permission to grieve that my family, my parents weren't the parents that I in my head wanted them to be. And when we had this conversation, you told me, literally told me that, well, you're grieving that you had this expectation that your mom is going to be this way, but instead she's a human, and she's living her life, who's doing the best that she can. And the emotions that you're feeling right now is not so much the anger, but it's more the sad emotion that she's not there just yet. And knowing that what the name of the emotion was, being able to have a conversation about that, because it was like this part of little it was like this little girl Shay that was in me that was just quieted, like she's there but whatever. And you giving me permission to grieve, it was like a moment where she was able to come out and say, you know what, yeah, little girl Shay is sad, little girl Shay is sad that you didn't do what I thought you would have did, when those people were teasing me, when they were calling me Shay X White and all these different things. Like, these are emotions that she feels, and she is me. And instead of having that guilt on my shoulders that I never even realized was there, I was able to, like, wait, so, like, I'm not just crazy or over emotional or just a woman, going through stuff or just stressed out about work. There's this whole other dynamic that has been here this whole time. And this is why I'm stressed. And it was so crazy because it was such a simple statement. You're grieving right now. Like that. It was that simple, but it was something nobody ever gave me. Nobody ever told me that it was okay for me to be sad, that people are mean who are supposed to be close to you, that your parents don't look like the way you feel like they should, that it's okay for you to have that emotions, that just because you're good or your mediocre or average is better than somebody's best, that you actually too have the right to feel a way, that that's what your life looked like, and to relieve that stress that can open up new opportunities for you to explore new emotions and explore what it's like, what life is like. Because it's not like major things change in the life around me. That didn't change. I still had the same stresses around me, but
Right.
I viewed things differently, knowing I had that permission to grieve. And that's why I said I'm going to try not to cry, because when we were having that conversation, it was a really emotional moment for me. And I was just stressed, but I had become used to dealing with that stress. That's just a part of life. That's just how it is. And you go to sleep, you wake up tomorrow. Tomorrow's another day, and let's just pray it'll be better.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know. I wanted to definitely share that story because it was something that meant so much to me, and
Well, I
it's
thank you. I thank you for that. So here's the thing. So I have this thing. It's called your space, and space is an acronym, and it's a specific pattern authentically creating energy, or your spiritual pattern that's authentically creating energy. And all of us have a space. And I don't know if for some reason we
oh no, it looks like we lost Sheila for a second, but I know her connection will come right back in. But I want to just elaborate a little bit more of what I was saying when it came to the concept of with the world's perception of me and how that affected me personally. I personally, like I said, I came from a background where I was encouraged to do well, but I soon found out that my well, in comparison to other people sometimes can have a habit of trying to, not, I won't even say trying to, because I really don't think that people do it on purpose. But again, you cannot teach, practice, or give what you yourself do not have. So, what my family dynamics really looked like was just like a lot of ours as women, as individuals. Um, it Everyone was just trying to do the best they could. Okay, we have Sheila back. But where the concept of grief came from was just more so me dealing with the emotions of my parents, and me feeling like they had not protected me in all the ways that they could have protected me, that they really didn't, and now me thinking that in the future we'll be able to do better in the future. But if they are not taking care of their health, if they are not practicing good financial practices and making good financial decisions, then what tomorrow do we have? And that's really where the conversation for me came from. Why I wanted to talk to Sheila was because I put off today what I thought I could do tomorrow, but what happens if the tomorrow that I wanted to have with my parents doesn't exist? Right? Like they're not making these good decisions to where we're going to have another 6 months or 6 years in order to fix things. How do I deal with those emotions if that is taken away from me? And that's how she was able to kind of bring up the conversation. You're grieving right now. You're grieving that you had this idea of what the future would look like for you and your parents, where they were able to learn from their past mistakes, where they were able to do better as far as your relationship with them. You're grieving that that person may not actually happen, that they may not actually become those people. And that's okay. It's okay for you to feel like that. So that's really where that conversation of grieving came from for me. And I've been able to see that in other people. And I realized that I'm not alone when it comes to that. So I just so while you were gone, I kind of elaborated for everyone else on what I meant when I said grieving.
Yeah. Which grief leads to procrastination too, right? I heard you say that about, so it's stuff that you're not doing too, right? So you're not having conversations that you should be having with your mom because you are grieving this idea or hoping that she would eventually get what you want her to do or how you want her to be, or see this all of this work that you're doing for her, and all of this help that you're providing her, right? And so you're like not doing some things, right?
Right.
And then just giving you the permission to say, hey, you're grieving the idea of what you want that relationship to be, and that's okay. That's okay.
Right.
you know but this needs to happen over here,
Right.
right? And you was like, oh wait, let's offer me. But when I was getting off, I had shared this space, a spiritual pattern
Yes.
that's authentically creating energy. And I say that God gave me these downloads, and that came to me about 3 years ago. Find your space, right? Your spiritual pattern that's authentically creating energy. And I think we all have a space, right? And when we find that space, it is this relief. It is this in my greatness. And my greatness could be 100% of my 100%, like, and it could be, 80% to LaShay, and I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? So I think when you and I were having that conversation, LaShay, it was more about helping you find the space, your space, and being okay with, hey, but this is your space to grieve, right? This is your authentic truth. This is what your idea was, right? And that's fine. But the reality of it is, your mom is not going to be that. Your dad may not be this. How do we reconcile, right? Those realities. You understand?
Yeah.
And and allow you to be okay with what you have and appreciate what you have in them so that you can be okay.
And that was what was so transformative, right? Because I became, in that moment that you said you're grieving right now, I became aware of the baggage that existed within my emotional capacity, which I had never thought about that before. Again, I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was doing the best that I could. I didn't realize that there was this hurt aspect that existed within me that led to me shutting down. If I'm being 110% honest with myself, with my with everything, that I became easily emotional, but my emotions look different than everyone else around me. My emotions weren't to cuss anyone out or start an argument or to do any of that. My emotions were just to shut down, to
Mm-hmm.
complete avoidance, to, again, that's a conversation we can have later, maybe when you're in this different place, when you become this ideal that I have of you as a parent. When you
Mm-hmm.
get to that place, then we can have this conversation. But me having that opportunity to grieve allowed me to remove that emotional baggage. And without that emotional baggage, well, now I have more emotional capacity. Like now I have more space. If my emotions were a jar, we emptied out half of that jar.
Mm-hmm.
which allowed me to have those conversations with my parents. So that's what I was going to tell you, that I am so proud of me because even with my family and having these tools,
Mm-hmm.
I have found the words to have some really important conversations with my family. And it wasn't just a parent thing. Like I said, I was labeled as a child. Those labels made me feel away. And it affected how I deal with my family today because of those
Mm-hmm.
things that happened from way back then. So I would just not evolve. That's why we don't deal with that side of the family. That's why we don't deal with those people, because we don't have that to do today. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized that, I do have that to do today, because I don't have a promise of tomorrow. I can't wait for you to get to where I want you to be, because that may possibly mean that I never have you in my life. That may possibly mean that, we never get to this better place, this happy place. And I've actually been having some really good conversations with my family. And like, that's why I said I'm trying not to cry now, because we were, for the first time, using like a lot of the things that you taught me, even within that conversation and other conversations, just about emotional intelligence and dealing with the root cause of where these things come from. We were able to have really good conversations and talk to each other and not at each other. And we realize that, like, I feel like a lot of times we get put into these places where you see the other, and it's like almost like a battlefield, and it's always this idea of you against me, and this feeling that, oh, you never wanted me to be better anyway, like you always felt about a way about me anyway. And stripping all of that away and having conversations and saying, hey, you know what, you're a person who's going through stuff, and I'm a person who's going through stuff, and let's remove all of that, but let's talk about what's going on right now in this moment. And for the first time in my entire life, I can honestly say we were able to have a conversation that stripped away all that old baggage. Thank you. That's what I said. I was so happy. I
Look,
could
I
not wait
gotta
to
go back
talk
to
to
the
you.
question. Why do we put off for tomorrow what can be done today? Right?
Yes.
Today's show topic, because LaShay gonna get on me. Today's show topic is the real reason why we procrastinate. And again, I'm glad that you brought up grief. I'm glad that you shared your story with our audience. I'm glad that the audience, y'all, give some hearts to LaShay. This is our new co-host. She is going to be here for this season too, as we share and open up our hearts, our minds, our stories to you guys. And hopefully you guys do the same, because this is a healing. This is a healing that's going to take place. And the real reason we procrastinate, Miss LaShay, is because of that baggage, because of
Yes.
these un stuff we're just unaware of, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, I'm so glad that Alex, gave me the she was like, you know what, I feel like you're more than a coach. You're like a friend and expert leader in the field of changing
Yes.
lives, right? I really like that, because it's more than just a therapist. It's more than just a synergy coach. It truly is. I want to be your friend and expert leader as I help you to shape your life and shape your narratives and shape your things, and help you to elevate in your love of self, your interactions with others, and your focus and your energy. Hey, you guys, we came to the end.
Yeah.
What of
Yes.
our first show in season 2? I thank you, Miss LaShay. I hope you
Thank
guys
you.
realize the real reason why you're procrastinating. If you guys have any questions, about any questions that you want to ask, you can always DM me at I am Shaping Solutions. Look, you can go
I'm gonna take
to
Danielle's word respectfully. DM.
right. You can go to join the email list, right, at
Yes.
SheilaLittle.com.
And
Um,
make sure that you also join the Facebook group, because in the Facebook group, Elevating Life with Shiela Little, that's where we go live. That's where we have these conversations. That's where she does her challenges. We are wrapping up on the 31 days of things that you should stop now. And we're entering into a whole new month where we are going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk about how to avoid those toxic, negative ones, and how to attract and embrace those ones that feed to your soul,
yes,
and how to deal with the emotions that cause you to fall on one end of the spectrum. So make sure you guys follow that Facebook group.
yes, absolutely. I thank you guys. I love you guys, and we will see you next week right here. If you want to be with us live, we record live on
Yes.
Wednesdays at 9 o'clock. in the Elevating Life group. So I'll see you guys next week right here. Till later.
See you.
Love you.
Bye, everyone.